All right, you grasshoppers. Ron Gresham was just telling old stories there that we cannot repeat on the air. Dukes is flying someplace. He says he's flying to California. We don't know if that's true or not. But he's not going to join us today. And we've got no guests. So we're going to answer everybody's questions today, get as many as we can possible. One quick thing we wanted to touch on from last week with Phil on. He was fantastic. Again, he set the record for the number of F-bombs. We've all got a ton of respect for Phil and like him a lot. Thank him for being on the show. And I think I can speak, and Ron and Dave will speak to it as well. He's done some great things for us. One thing, and we should have done a better job of addressing it while it happened, but his comments about Willie Huber, that may be Phil's opinion. That was not our opinion of Willie when he played with us. He was a fantastic teammate. So we should have addressed it at the time. We talked about it afterwards, and we watched our show again, and it's something we should address. So I just want to make sure everybody understands how we as teammates felt about Willie. He was fantastic. Dave or Ron, you guys want to jump in?
Well, I remember when Willie got here, I became great friends with him and forever. Like even when he got traded away, we kept in touch. And I remember when he passed away, it was like it was a heartbreaker. Like he was a teammate, he was a good teammate. He was a lot of fun. Willie, right. He loved living in the city, and I remember one year-end party at his apartment. We had a lot of fun, and we even had a couple beers. Willie, I never had no. I had always respect for Willie for whatever he did, and I loved him as a.
Yeah, I think it's another thing too. Like, rarely over time, I think we're all. Who was it we were on with? Either Tonelli or Gillies, and we're all trying to do the same thing, right? We're all who we are, and really good people. And the thing with Phil is always an entertaining. He's an entertaining guest. He's an opinionated, and he's a legitimate hockey builder, player, and all those things. But in the meantime, Tom, your words are well spoken about Willie as a teammate. I always thought, for a big man, he was really, really talented. But he never really ever had to play with an edge because he was so big all the time, right? So you remember most of the guys that played with an edge were the little guys.
Yeah.
Right? Because they had to compete, right? And then you kind of get to be a bigger guy, and all along you're told, well, you're so much bigger than everybody else, you can't be picking on anybody. You can't be, and to me, he was a big teddy bear with all kinds of talent. He could shoot it, he could move it. And really when he passed, like, he's a little bit younger than I am and a lot younger than Gresh, but when he goes, it's another time that you kind of regroup and you think, what, we're thankful for a lot of things we've done and thankful that we've had an opportunity to continue on. So he was a good man, Willie.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. And you're right. He was a talented player. And you're right. It's tough, right, when you're that big of a guy.
Right.
It's a no-win proposition. Either you fight somebody and you beat him, well, you should beat him because you're bigger, or you lose to somebody and they say, well, how could you lose to a smaller guy? So it's
right. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, if we had the guy on 2 weeks ago that was a big guy that was me.
Yeah.
Gillies, right?
Oh yeah, well, I would have kicked Gillies, whatever.
I feel pretty comfortable about him.
On this show, I can be tough.
Oh yeah.
So Gillies, you're out there listening. You're next.
Yeah. So just got a couple of breakthroughs here too. Some big news for In the Box. Ron Gresher is not wearing a hat today. He got a haircut. And I think he got them all cut actually.
Yeah, I got them all cut. Yeah, the guy was laughing at me because I had not got my hair cut since February.
Did he charge you extra?
Well, he charged me 25 cents a corner. So it got there pretty high. But anyway, he goes to me, what happened to your hair? Because I was cutting it myself, So it wasn't in very good alignment. So I kept wearing a hat. I think I'm getting down to where my hair is almost close to you two guys now.
Yeah. Well, listen, when you're Tom and I,
Yeah, you don't need a comb, you need a towel.
And actually, I don't know about you, Tom, but I have my own razor.
Oh, it's same here. I just do it myself. Yeah. My sons used to say I had like a peninsula up there, and it turned into an island, and we got rid of that pretty quick.
That reminds. Yeah, but we never. It was funny. I always tell the story about. all of us when we played, there was a lot different look. And some of Gresh's age, closer to how he looked. I won't comment on Tommy, but I know I don't look at all like when I played. I was at a supermarket, right, in town, and I'm walking into the market, and a guy in a pickup, he happened to be in a pickup truck, pulls up, and he goes, "Hey, Dave." I'm walking in. I'm walking in. I feel okay. I feel pretty good. The guy might recognize me from the old days or whatever. He goes, Dave Maloney. And I turn around. And the guy looks at me and goes, "Nah, that's not him."
Oh, God.
That's perfect. Whatever.
Yeah. No.
When I retired, I got in the agent business, and there's a bus company up in Canada called Laidlaw Buses or Laidlaw Transit. And so I'd go check into the hotels as I'm traveling around here, like recruiting players, particularly in Western Canada. And when I go check in the hotel, your ego, same kind of thing. The people at the desk are going, Laidlaw. Are you with the bus company? No, I played in the NHL for 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if it was a trucking company, it would have been you, Tom, because that's what your goal
Yes.
was, right?
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember that
Did I
back in
truck driving course?
1985. I want to drive a truck. I go, what? Didn't you go to Pennsylvania or somewhere?
Yep.
6 weeks or something?
I think I may have told the story, but it was funny because I remember we talked about before how Dave had been doing stuff during the summer, really one of the first guys I'd seen really getting himself ready for after hockey. And the Rangers had come up with a program where they pay for you to go to school during the summer. So I was reading the paper and I went to the back page, and I'll never forget, I saw this advertisement for Superior Truck Driving School. So I called the Rangers up and I said, I'm going to school. I'm going to take some classes. And they think this is all great. Like they think I'm going to Harvard Business School or something like that. And they said, what are you doing? I'm going to truck driving school. And went up in the mountains in Pennsylvania. The hotel that I stayed in, I paid $225 for. $225 for 3 weeks. That's how nice the hotel was. I had the only room with a bathroom in it.
Wow.
It was every person who couldn't do any other job. It was quite a cast of characters. The final week you're driving around out, and so there's two fellow drivers in the back, the instructor's in the passenger seat, and you're driving. We had this guy in with us. He was a cab driver from Manhattan, trying to learn how to drive a truck, and he wouldn't stop at stop signs with this big 18-wheeler. And the instructor kept yelling at him, "You got to stop, and he wouldn't do it. So he finally threw the guy out in the middle of the street. It was like middle of nowhere. He threw him out there. What are you going to do with him? He said, leave him out there. So,
yeah, it's funny, right? How it works. I mean, that's the thing you get. But anyway, live and learn. And now you're like this life coach and agent. And you saw that one coming, right, Crash?
Yeah.
Now he's a chef.
Chef too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Hairstylist.
Hairstylist is that one's easy.
Yeah.
That one you passed. The other one is you got your chef and your also. What do you call those people that mix drinks?
Bartender?
Not bartender, but there's some other word. They have some fancy word nowadays.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Tom,
Is that a barista, is it?
Tom is also one of those guys too.
Those guys.
I put this in my drink. I put this in my drink. By the time I do all that talking, the drink's gone.
Who would have known that in my kitchen I've got an air fryer, a juicer, a blender for my smoothies. It used to be just like a case of beer in the fridge.
Yeah, I know, because you rented my condo one year. There was nothing in there but like moss and
what were you thinking?
Fungus and stuff in that thing.
I hope you've learned your lesson. You would never rent to another hockey player again, would you?
Man.
That's the way it's supposed to be, though.
Yeah.
I remember my brother-in-law Don Fettis. He came down to visit me back in the '70s, and I was living on 86th Street. And so we went out that night, and we had quite a few.
A mixologist.
That's a mixologist, right? Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
And so he goes. He had a 7:00 in the morning flight out of LaGuardia, back up to Toronto. So he goes to the fridge, opens it up, and there's a can of orange juice in there, right, or one of those things, And he picks it up and he goes to shake it, and it doesn't move because it's been in there for about 6 months. Because I never ate at home, never had orange juice. Went to the mansion across the street, the Deli Mansion, and got food. So he goes, he opens the freezer up, and in the freezer there's a fur coat. He goes, I got to get out of here. He left and he went to the airport and ate. He's telling me the story. He got an orange thing of orange juice, and it's like frozen, but it's not frozen. It's so moldy and everything. It's been there for like I don't even know how long it was there. I didn't throw it out until he told me it was in there.
Yeah.
I've been in that fridge in a year. But
All right. We told our fans we would try to get to as many questions as possible today. Dave, the first question is for you. I got sent to me here from a Joseph Rosario. I think you guys have probably met him before at some of our events. He does a lot of coaching, a lot of great stuff. He wants to know, Dave, what it was like to be the youngest captain in Ranger history, and how was it received by the veterans on the team?
Well, I mean, I've often, I have been asked that question over time, right? And the whole captain thing, I think, has taken on a life of its own, right? Especially when Mark, they won the cup and Mark was the captain, and I remember it was Freddie Shero at a sponsors luncheon right before the season started that said, "This is what we're going to do." I talked to Phil and I said, "Okay," and on we went. And I think, Gresh, right? Like we had a very young team.
Yeah.
And I got along well with Vad. JD was a big supporter. Walter was Walter. So, like a lot of things that year played out because of the mix we had. And at that time, any role I played was
I think you should stop right now because you're not going to blow your own horn. I know that. I basically, for hockey wise in the NHL, me and Dave grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, he played, a few games the first year, then more games the next year, and then he became a full-time Ranger right after, I think, the first year or second year, whatever. And he had an enthusiasm and a gut for the game that he was, I don't want to say a little crazy, but he played the game a certain way, and a lot of guys followed him. Like we all hung out together. We were like it was kind of like all for one and one for all. And
Dave was a little crazy, was he?
Well, I don't mean crazy. I mean like he a lot of enthusiasm, crazy.
Right.
Well,
and we all got along. Then I know like when this whole thing went to him to be the captain, there was nothing. There was like, okay, good. Dave's the captain. Let's all follow along, and we did. We had our team was getting a little bit older. We were a lot of guys together for a long time, and Dave showed a lot of leadership that, for his age, he was a year and a half younger than I am, but for his age, he was way beyond his years, which was good. And we all stuck together, and we were all good friends, and we developed into a decent team.
The thing too, it was interesting to listen to Phil last week when he talked about when he got traded here, the attitude that he perceived to be here.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't help but think that then when we came along, and Fergie loved us young guys, right? Fergie, he just and then because he played against a lot of the older guys, and he still held some animosity against the guys he played against, as a player. And so when I was listening to Phil talk about the transition, and then when he signed off on basically the fact that this franchise needed a change in attitude. And I think we young guys, maybe I epitomized that change in attitude or whatever it meant. But we had a lot of guys that cared a lot about and weren't around long enough. Like when you look at that group of Rangers, right, Gresh, like Rod, and they'd had a couple kisses at the cup. And then the WHA came in and there was bigger money and who knows, maybe they got all a little too content or whatever. But you know what? It's a long time ago. First of all, like I think we all are, we're proud to have played for the franchise. And
absolutely.
Still,
you were a good leader, Dave. You were.
What's that?
You led by example. You led in practice. You were, whether we had a few drinks the night before, everybody next day we were all young. We were there. We wanted to all get better.
Right.
So we kind of all got together, and you were the captain, and we kind of like ran together, and it was great. I think you showed great leadership.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be really nice to you because you're my friend.
Really?
If you weren't, I would have told you. Like,
yeah,
we've been friends a long time, and
yeah,
how I feel about you.
Well, we actually, and Gresh is right. We grew up together and started together and to this day. So it's something, as I'm saying, I'm still milking it 40 some odd years later as that whole role, and it's all good.
The tough thing I think too is I was an assistant captain, and Barry Beck got hurt. He was a captain, And it was Herb was coaching, and a typical Herb way, I guess he'd gone to Anders and said, Anders, do you want to wear the C? And Anders said, no, Tommy should wear the C. So Herb comes to me and says, Anders didn't want to have the captain, so you're the captain later on. That's it. So I became captain. And the biggest thing was not trying to change who you were, how you played, right? I mean, isn't that sometimes the danger when you become that captain? You have that feeling that you've got to do something differently than you were doing it before, right?
Yeah, I think so. I know Gresh wore the C too over time, and I think the thing is, you just I'm proud of the fact that I have that on my or whatever, but I do wish I was a little bit older. I think I think I would have been a better. And then in those days, Freddie there were some issues with Freddie as time went on, and there was a bit of a void as far as the structure in the franchise. But I certainly don't regret it. But if I do think that, to your point, and I do know too, the better player you are, the better captain you are. Your game. At the end of the day, to me, like a lot of things, your game says a lot.
Yeah.
How you play, how you compete, the results of your game say an awful lot about who you are as a player. At the end of the day, you got to be able to play. And
I'm not saying that this isn't your case at all, Dave, when I say this, but I think some coaches too, they name captains for different reasons, right? There's sometimes maybe a captain, they want him to be like a star player, but be more responsible as a leader. So they feel like when they put the C on the sweater, he's kind of forced to take on that role, right?
Well, that's why I don't know what you think, Gresh or Tommy, but that's what I felt when Bubba was named captain. I really felt that he was just to kind of get him more involved and put that role in. And I'm not sure he was ever that type of person.
Yeah.
I think
he was that dominant player. Like you said, he was that dominant player to be the captain, but he wasn't really that comfortable, standing up and addressing the team. And
he was a scary individual when he got going, though.
Whew.
Yeah. Oh, listen,
I played with his brother Murray, who was my age, and Bubba was, I guess, 3 years younger than me. And Murray was probably half the size of Bubba. But Murray could skate like the wind. Like in today's game, Murray would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was like a Theo Fleury, kind of like add on to like one of those guys, that are small and fast.
All right. So we have Walter Swanson with a question here. Who was the toughest goalie to beat for each of you?
Well, for Tommy, it was all of them.
I was just going to say that, Ron. Can you let me answer my own question?
Well, you got to have the puck in your stick to be able to shoot the goalie. And
I saw a video on YouTube the other day, and I remember this play. I came out of the penalty box. It must have been like 83 or 84 or something. I got a clear breakaway, and I was so nervous I was going to miss the net. Like I just fired right in the goalie's chest. I'm not missing the net. Guys, I come back to the bench and going, "Way to warm up the goalie, Tom."
Well, unfortunately, the position, especially more in those days too. The position, we were all defenders, and I know Bobby changed the game. Potvin, Brad Park, Gresh was a really a puck handler. So smart with the puck and so calm with the puck.
Yeah.
I can't remember a goalie, when you only score as few as we did. I get the toughest ones. I think I do tell one goaltending story that had whatever. So we played the finals in '79, and Ken Dryden, it's well documented, he gets really shelled in game one, and Bunny the Rock's going to start in game two. And LaRock gets hit in the head with the puck and warm up. Dryden comes back, and then Dryden's Dryden. Anyway, we were doing a show on MSG, and Dryden was our guest. And he was talking about the low point of his career was the '79 finals, particularly game one. And I'm going, damn, I scored a shorthanded goal in game one.
Yeah.
It's been the highlight of my career, right? And this guy who's got 10 cups telling me that the low point of his career was game one of the '79 finals. I'm like, oh, gosh, talk about bursting the bubble.
Yeah, I scored my first goal against him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, in December of '74.
Mhm.
He's not that good.
Oh gosh.
Was that Dave? That was the toughest goalie, you think, Dryden?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to respect Billy Smith. I mean, Bernie Perron. I mean, there were the guys who won. To me, that's the teams
Yeah.
that were winning. Their goalies were usually pretty good.
Well, how about this one here? The ones that we beat and we beat them in the game and we won the game and we scored a goal, they sucked. The ones that beat us, they were great. They were great.
Right. Well, I remember when. Well, it was 79. And then we used like when we had success against the Flyers, right? Like the Flyers would finish like a gazillion points ahead of us because they'd go around kicking the crap out of everybody in the league.
Yeah.
And then come playoff time, that doesn't quite work, especially if you don't get goaltending.
Yeah.
So, you know what? They never got the goaltending they needed. Like we're talking, they chased Dukes around, try and beat him up.
Yeah.
We'd score in the power play and win every year against them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The goaltending wasn't that good. So
I think in '79 when we played them, I think the Islanders ended up scoring like that's in the '80s scored 15 power play goals against the Flyers.
right,
We had like 10 or 12.
right,
We had like 3 or 4 shorthanded ones too.
right.
And but they were in the penalty box, so you just get the puck, pass it around. They get tired of chasing you, score a goal.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's how it works.
Yeah.
All right, from Jerry Grosshandler here. Was it fun playing with a guy like Rexy? The guy could fly. It was fun playing with him. I hated practicing with him.
First of all,
Remember Herbie had that drill. He had to go around 3 times. We first got training camp was in Finland. That's when we first wrote there with Rexy, and he was lapping us. We was going around.
right?
Too fast. Like he I wonder how he'd be today. Like he was.
Yeah.
He could shoot the puck. And
Oh,
he
one
was,
time. Yeah.
Oh my God, he was.
Well, that's what I remember too about practice. Like if you were on penalty kill detail and they're working on the power play,
Yeah.
and he'd tee it up.
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
And it wasn't coming by your ankles either. it was giving you a haircut.
Incoming.
Remember, he was a funny guy. He wouldn't talk at all for the first few months. We didn't think he'd talk. We took him to the bar and had a couple of cocktails. He would never shut up after that. He's just
How about the other Mikko Lennon?
Yeah.
Mikko.
Am I remembering correctly with Mikko? We were in Winnipeg and he get a penalty called against him, started taking his equipment off on the ice. Did I remember that correctly?
I don't remember that, but I won't deny it.
He was a funny guy.
He was a cool breeze on a hot summer day, right?
Yeah.
Like he'd be
6 assists in one game.
Yeah.
right, his Flyers playoffs.
Yeah, he holds the
He'd be
record.
sitting there and Herbie'd be railing on or whatever. And I always forget he'd be sitting there on the bench, his skates up on his stick, just kind of sitting there on. He was a cool breeze on a hot summer day. It was great.
Yeah.
He was,
He was.
but Rail was, a powerful skater. And, they were, it's pretty commonplace now with the Europeans, right? But in our day, especially in the early, mid 70s, you look at those rosters, all Canadians, a few Americans, and
Yeah.
then when Anders and Ulf came, and a lot of things started opening up.
Well, there was, I think almost every time there was a whistle back in the 70s, there was like half punches thrown in the net. Like you're getting one from this side, one from that side. It was like part of the game. You knew it was coming. You had to just brace yourself for it.
Right.
Right. I mean, going into Philly was a joke. Those guys were, I mean, they thought they were like
Philly and Boston, right? Like they talk about hitting from behind now. Like you can hit from behind. I mean,
I hear people talk about the code, like the fighting code. There's no code. I mean, you hit the guys as many times as you can. So you're down and keep punching them. And so back then, there's no code.
Yeah. Oh, no, you used to gouge their eyes, whatever you get a hold of.
Yeah.
Who cared? I remember in Philly, though, when they used to cut the ice, you pull the nets out and the Zamboni goes around. They always left like that much snow on the boards behind on our end.
Yeah.
So when a puck got shot in and it would hit the boards there and the boards were dead, it would just go like this, drop down, and you knew they were coming.
Yeah.
There was no like, oh, am I going to get hit on this play? The question was, how many times are we going to get hit?
Right. Well, I talk about code and fighting, Tommy. I remember one time at the Garden, I fought Tiger Williams,
Oh yeah.
which was a total mismatch or whatever. But I remember it was down in the Zamboni end, and he had me, and he stuck his fingers in my mouth, and he was pulling on my cheek, so I bit his finger.
Oh,
And
Good.
so what did you do that for? What'd you do that for? I said, well, get your goddamn fingers out of my mouth.
He bit my finger. I had to go for a tetanus shot.
we had a fight with was it Dale Hunter or what? He was in Quebec City. He was in Quebec City. He bit me in the cheek. Fight. Who thinks of doing that? You know, like what the.
Well, that's the thing now. Like when you tell those stories, or people, or even the generations that have come along now, where it's so dramatically different, and I think we would all agree it's better. We would look back at it nostalgically and think that we were tougher, or whatever. Probably were, but not any smarter, maybe. But I tell the stories, and they kind of look at you and go, really?
Think about like a guy like Tiger Williams. Like I know it may be hard to believe. Like he's a really intelligent guy too. When I get traded in LA, he was there, and I remember because Bobby Carpenter, was hated in Washington, right? Because he had that holdout. He got traded to the Rangers, got traded with me to LA, and one of our first trips was back into Washington, and we're in warm-ups, and this one of those guys about like 400 pounds sitting there with a box of popcorn, and he's yelling at warm-up. He's yelling everything at Bobby Carpenter. You suck. Your dog sucks. Your cat sucks. Everybody sucks. And Tiger Williams, I don't know how he did it, but it's like he kind of got his jersey. He made it into like a little basket. He got all the warm-up pucks, and then he got up on the glass and he starts firing the pucks at this guy that's yelling at Carpenter. And I'm skating around in center ice, and I think it was Pete Peters was the goalie. We both stopped and looked at each other like, "What the heck is going on?" We get back in the locker room, and it's like Tiger had planned the whole thing, though. Like he waited for everybody to get into the locker room, and then he said, "Nobody ever treats one of my teammates like that." So, like, he had everything planned. Like, and you went to his house, and this is back, like I said, in the 86 or 87. He's got one of the first guys I saw that ever had a computer with the stock market ticker on it there. Like, so he was investing in stocks and everything. So he was this really intelligent guy that kind of built the Tiger Williams brand and knew how to play it. So.
Oh, he did that. He was, he wasn't the biggest guy, but he'll tell you one thing: he'd fight anybody.
Yeah. Speaking of former Ranger like that, one of the questions was we lost it here. It scrolled up was George McPhee. What was it like to have George McPhee as a teammate?
I remember. I can't tell the whole story about George, but one time George and Bubba were driving through the park, right, in the city, and their car broke down. So they got in a little altercation with these guys and playing baseball on the fields. So George comes back and I said, "George, did you hit a guy in the fence?" Because Bubba told me the story that would happen to him all over there, right? So I end up telling George that it was a mafia guy's son.
Oh,
George, it was training camp came, and George stayed for 2 weeks in his room. He would go to practice and go home.
I think, honestly, for me, pound for pound, he was the toughest guy I ever played with.
Yeah, amazing.
I remember one of the first, it might have been camp or one of the first practices. No, he wouldn't have got it. No, it was after, I think he fought Scott Stevens or something like that, and it was early. And I don't know that we really knew, I wouldn't speak for anybody else, I didn't really know George as a player. He didn't have any track record. And I remember watching him fight and go, oh, he's going to get a lot more room in practice, that guy.
Yeah. Hobie Baker Award.
Yeah. Well, I played against him in college. I think I was a year or two ahead of him. And he was a small little guy. And in college, you can't fight or anything like that. So, and I'm thinking I'm the toughest guy on the planet right at that time. And, he's like this little gnat, and I'm spearing him. Get away from me. I had no idea how tough he was. And one of the first games he came up, it may have been his first game. We were playing the Islanders, and he went to square off with Bobby Nystrom. And I'm thinking to myself, George is going to get killed. So, I didn't jump in to fight Nystrom, but I just got kind of bumped in, got between them so no fight would happen. And George was hot at me. We got to the belly box. He's yelling at me like, "What the F are you doing?" And everything. It saved your life, for God's sake. Gets back out in the ice right away. They both of them go at it, and I didn't hand it to Nystrom, but Nystrom certainly did beat him. It was like a draw, and I'm looking at him and go, "Holy smokes!" Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. He was the toughest guy.
I remember one of his first fights was Dave Langerman.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
The Seventh Avenue end at the Garden.
Garden.
And your Langeman had to be 6'2", 6'3", right? 6'4",
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And big guy, and here's George. I go like, oh my God. Langeman looked like there was like a power saw went through his face.
Yeah.
He was all scratched up, and
But
he was hanging on the net. He had no idea where he was.
Well, speaking of the guys, Tiger Webb, there's another guy that really bright. Went to law school after. He was a pretty successful restaurateur too, right? With the Blue Moon Cafe.
Oh, yeah, I was involved with
there.
that.
And then he kind of would trade himself out of the place into another one, and he's been a wonderful executive in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And our paths crossed quite a bit over the course of the winter. I mean, he looks the same as he did when he played. He's the same weight.
Still just as short, right?
Yeah, he's just.
Oh, you're telling me you said that.
Yeah, exactly. You're on your own.
Okay.
Remember the fight he had at the Garden with Rick Tocchet?
Oh,
yeah.
Playoffs.
I think he cut up Tocchet, didn't he?
Yeah, in the playoffs.
One of the funniest things about that when you watch the video is Glenn Hanlon's reaction on the bench.
Oh,
So that he's pumped up. Fire bench is just steaming looking at him. And Glenny was one of the funniest teammates I've ever seen.
Great.
Although the day of the game, though, you couldn't talk to Glenn. He wouldn't talk at all. But then when it wasn't a game day, he was hilarious. He was a good guy.
Well, if he knew he was playing the night before, you couldn't talk to him then either.
Yeah.
Like if you got on a bus somewhere, like say it was Friday to Toronto or something, we get on the bus, and he knew he was playing the next day. Oh God, just stay away from him. He was so miserable.
I love him.
Great guy though.
Do you remember when he chased Thomas Sanson around at Rye Playland at practice?
Yeah.
Oh, were you there, Dave?
No.
No, you're right. Because it was Teddy Sater's days. Because Teddy Sater had a Swedish wife.
Right.
It was one of those, we were playing bad. It was one of those times where we go around the room and everybody gives their opinion on what we need to do, And Thomas's English wasn't very good. And he was right before Mike McEwen. And Mike McEwen, Cue Ball's a great guy, but Q wasn't going to get up and make, he wasn't Newt Rocky, right? I mean, he wasn't. So Cue Ball says something like, I don't know, I just come here and do my job and that's it. And we all think, well, okay, that's just
true.
So Thomas Sanson's right after him, and he just says, well, I feel the same way as Mike McEwen, because he doesn't really know what Mike McEwen said.
He doesn't know. He has no idea.
So Glenny Hanlon is he's best friends with Tiger Williams. Like they're tight. Like they're both team guys, team. And Glenny was just fuming. He goes, Tommy, I'm going to kill him when we get out on the ice. They're talking about Thomas Sandstrom. So, of course, Thomas, which he always did, we start a warm-up drill. Thomas comes down and shoots one at Glenny's head. Glenny's out of the net, chasing him around, swinging the goalie stick at him and everything. And we're trying to dive in front of him to catch him, stop him from getting to Thomas, settle them all down, get him back in the net. Now, remember, Teddy Sater's wife is Swedish. So we're practicing for about 10 more minutes, another shooting drill. Thomas comes down, fires another one at Glenny's head. Well, he's out of the net again. You chicken shit Swede. He's yelling at him. And again, Teddy Sater, the head coach's wife, is Swedish. I mean, so he's going at him with the whole Swedish thing. Oh, God, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I absolutely loved Glenn. He was smart. He had a tremendous sense of humor. He could laugh. And you're right, though. But remember, Herbie had to wean him off the Coke. Like, he used to drink like a case of Coke.
Yeah.
Before a game.
Yeah.
Herbie tried to wean him off of that. And I absolutely loved Glenn.
Yeah, he was good. He was good.
Well, that was Coke in a bottle, right? That wasn't the other Coke.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear. We're saying he was a drug addict, but he was. I remember back like when we first started with the goalies and that. Whoever was in net or practice that day, like you're sitting there in the corner waiting for the drill to go. I used to fire the pucks at their feet in net, right? JD used to get so mad.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. He'd be looking over. You could just see like that face.
Yeah.
That big face coming through that mask he had. It was like
JD would take his catching glove off and put it on the end of his stick if you fire a hard one out, stick it up in the air. Like, is that what you're supposed to be shooting?
Yeah. No, JD was, for me, he was like Rush, two guys that I look back now, and two guys were pretty important for me. I really, let alone he could, as Clark Gillies told us a couple of weeks ago, the goaltending performance of JD in '79 would rival any goaltending performance in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And
I remember the Phillies series, I think it was. We lost the first game in overtime. I think it was.
Yeah.
And then we smoked them like 7-1 or 7-2, whatever. Went back to the Garden, and we're all praying that we score 7 goals in Philly. If we can get a couple at home and hold them to like a couple, would be great, right?
Right.
And we smoked them like 6-0, 6-1 or something.
Yeah.
And JD, I think that's why he's like a little lopsided now, because he's got like that 1 year from standing on it for those games. He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. It was like, it was just, and he's a big man. I mean, like he was probably the first guy. I mean, maybe Cesar Maniego and Dryden, right, were that big. But other than that, there was nobody like that size. Like there was
he moved like he played like a smaller guy. Like that's the thing. He was like almost Hasek, like a big man. He was good dude.
All right, guys. A lot of people are asking who was the toughest player. I guess there's a lot of different kinds of toughness, right? Toughest fighter, toughest player that you guys ever played against.
Two guys I didn't want to play against ever. When I first started playing was Orr, because he could skate faster than the 3 guys together on our team. Right. And after that was basically Lemieux, Mario. He was no fun to play against, especially like in the late 80s.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he could just do things with the puck. Like the guys that were tough you played against, they didn't bother you because most of those guys, by the time they got to the net, the puck was already chopped up to score anyway.
Swear.
Yeah, but there was guys like even like Brett Hall. Brett Hall, like when I played at the late 80s, like he was sneaky.
Yeah.
He was, and once you got the puck, if you were more than 3-4 feet away, you couldn't get to the puck in time, even with your stick. It was off the stick and bang, gone, right? And guys like that were tough. And Gretzky wasn't tough to defend, but you defended him 2 or 3 guys at one time.
Yeah.
And then the other, he passed. I mean, that's why he's got 2,000 assists. There's a reason that he was the smartest player ever to live in the game.
Yeah, for me, right off the top, the toughest guy to play against for me was Trottier. When he was at the top of his game, those Islanders years, because he was strong, he was fearless, he was mean, and you couldn't intimidate him, and he certainly could do things with he could do things with the puck. The puck wasn't square when it was on his stick. He was one of the the tougher guys I remember from a skill set and the total package, right? He could just he could do that. And I remember I only had 1 year. My last year was Lemieux's first year, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this guy. And then when he learned to compete, then it all came together. Yeah. And finally, I'll tell my one Gretzky story amongst many. It was at the Garden. Somehow I got caught on the right side, right? Because he's a left-handed shot. He picked up the puck just to the top of their circles and started wheeling up ice. So again, in those days, the game was pretty linear, right? Everybody was in their lanes and you had back checkers and all these. It was a pretty fundamental game. I don't know, like nowadays, it's like NASCAR with no lanes, right? Like they're all over the map. But in those days, so all you had to do really was just keep him to the outside. Just keep him to the outside, right? So he comes through the neutral zone, got him to the outside, over the blue line, top of the circles. Now I get him down below the goal line. I figured, all right, what's he going to do there? He banks it off the side of the net to Curry in the slot. 1-0 Edmonton. Like, what? How the hell are you supposed to defend that?
The passes he would make would drive you nuts, though.
Yeah. You know what was the worst for me? Remember Gilbert Perreault?
Oh, yeah.
So growing up, Dave, around where we get all the Buffalo games in Southern Ontario there. And as a kid, I'm watching him play, and he's beating people one-on-one. It was more of the mental thing. Now playing against him, like you've watched him beat other NHL defensemen so many times, and now you're out there against him. It's like I'm backing up to the goal line, And he was good. He beat me a couple of times. I think more because mentally, I was freaked out by this is Gilbert Perreault, and I watched him do it so many times.
My very first shift. Sorry, Dave. My very first shift when I got called up in November of '74. My first shift for playing Buffalo. Brad Park comes off, I jump on, right? I look up, guess who's coming down the ice? Gilbert Perreault.
Yeah.
And it was start of the game. And remember how bad the ice was back then with all the water on it? He's coming out of the end. I'm going like, this is great.
Yeah.
First shift. Oh, he's gonna go over, he's gonna come down. And how am I gonna stop this guy, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna go around me, back into the net, sit down the bench, get back in your car tomorrow and get back down to Pravi. And he's coming down like, you know how you can skate like the wind, right?
Yeah.
He's coming down, hits the red line, puck gets stuck in the water. I pick it up, go the other way.
Good move.
I looked like I checked him.
Good move.
I wasn't even close to checking the guy. He was already in our end by our net with no puck.
Well, he was in Buffalo when I got traded there, right? So I played the last season with him.
Oh.
And in a lot of ways, he wasn't as patient with the puck as Lemieux, but his body seemed to move.
Yeah.
Like he'd have, a leg would be out here or something to be out there, and he was going at a speed, and he just, he was one of the guys that probably didn't get enough recognition.
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo is a terrific hockey market. It's a terrific hockey town, right? But it's not a major market. He was a terrific.
Yeah. Dave, a few people have asked this question. What was it like when your brother came to play on the team and having your brother play with you on the Rangers?
It was great. He was Don is 2 years younger than I am. And we only played, so there was myself, my brother Bob. So I was born July of 56. My brother Bob was born in August of 57. Don was born in September of 58. And then my sister was born in October of 60. So
no TVs back then? Or?
Yeah.
They know what causes that now,
Big Steve, my father was on a hot streak or something. I mean,
Yeah.
So anyway, we only ever played together. In 1967, we were on a squirt team, right? Three of us all played on a squirt team. So that was the only time I ever played with Don or my brother Bob, and would never play with Bob again. And so I got drafted. We were only 2 years apart, but I got drafted 2 years early, so we're 4 years apart hockey-wise in a lot of ways. So bottom line was, let alone, it was just he's my closest sibling. I'm not sure I would have had the opportunity to develop the relationship we had he not been drafted. And it was great because I think too when we roomed together, a lot of people think we sound alike, talking wise. So you pick up the phone, and if you didn't want, you'd pass it off to Don, or he'd pass it off to me, and I'd spin a story or something like that. So, but he's, he was a hard worker. I'll tell you, I know Gresh has some thoughts about his game, but I'll tell you the one thing about him. The thing, he would win those battles in the corner and come up with the puck, but then his ability to make a play, like to make a pass or find somebody. Like a lot of things people talk about him, how well he was in that small area, but I think he was even better because then when he got the space, he could do something. And he's a tremendous man, and I was just lucky to be able to play with him.
Well, but the whole thing, I wasn't putting down his playing.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, you were, Gresh. Well, don't try to say a lot of it now, Gresh. Sure you were.
Okay, Donnie, I was apologize. It was when you got, even in practice, when you got the puck along the boards, like he dump it in his feet, and it's like you're battling a stick that he's got between your, not jamming you, but and he was just amazing. Like it was fun. He was good at keep away at the end of the game and in the practice too.
Yeah, that was fun.
I hated that Gresh. I could never get that.
Oh yeah, he was so good, wasn't he? Oh my God.
Yeah, well, it was
pissed.
I remember. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Steve Richmond. Steve Richmond. I think it was something like that. We were doing it at the end of practice, and he ended up just hacking me and went off the ice. he started. I go like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I go here." I give him the puck. I go here. Take it. And he goes, and he was a good guy, Steve. But that
was the thing. Gresh is a lot like John Beliveau was Gresh's idol, right? Gresh.
Yeah, I loved him.
And same as Lemieux, like had that. So he'd hold the puck out here, and then do one of these, and you go, and then you pull it here, or pull it. Alfie was different I used to love it. The keep away was great. We get
Yeah.
Murdoch and Donnie Murdoch would get involved, and he
Oh,
Yeah.
Murder used to be the funniest though. He would get so mad too. Murder. He would like those little chubby cheeks would pop up.
Yeah.
He'd be swearing at you, and he'd skate off and he'd sneak up behind you, try to get the puck off you, but you knew he was coming. There's only one area to come on the ice. Oh,
So just so the fans understand, after practice, a bunch of little kids, like we did 10 guys, 12 guys and one puck, and you're just playing keep away. And guys like Gresh, he's standing still and he's stick handling around people, and I'm trying to do my best. I get the puck and it's in two pieces by the time I'm done with it. So it was a blast.
Like isn't it amazing though how hockey moved to the 3-on-3 and then all that stuff, and we always played the 3-on-3.
Yeah. No, we listen. I will say, for the first time, this present group of Rangers, now they're all young, but they're a lot of dirty. Like we were dirty stayouts after practice, a lot, especially when we were single. We didn't kill for time. If we'd ever had the facility they have now, I would never went home.
No, I'd have lived there.
Yeah.
So they stay out on the ice, Dave?
Yeah, this present group, they're they have to take Capo Caco off the ice and Mika and Guy. It's really neat. Now they're single. A lot of it's just a young group. But it's really good to see guys actually having fun with the game. That was the thing for me is that I used to honestly, God, I love the morning skates.
Yeah,
I love the practices after practice when you could just be a kid and go out and just play.
I loved the after practice stuff. It was fun. We do like some 3-on-3s or whatever they were back then. It was just, and everybody's going like, you guys. I remember when I first got there, there wasn't too much of that.
Yeah,
nothing putting it down. But as you came in, Dave, and then especially when Mario came and Dukes came and Murdoch came and all those guys came and Mike McEwen. That was kind of like a group of guys that were like a year and a half, 2 years younger than I was, but we all got along so well.
Right.
And on the ice, it was like we had the little scrimmages at the end or whatever. We had a great time doing it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Do you think
that's how we got better.
I think that's so important as a team that you have that group of characters that really enjoy being together, whether it's after practice or team dinners or whatever. I really see that with this team now. For a while there, and I don't know what it was, it didn't seem like the Rangers had that to the level that you wanted. Like now, I just see this team like Panarin's having fun out in the ice. Savannah just his work is incredible. So
I think it comes, Tom, from a guy like Mika.
Yeah, he definitely has. Yeah,
he the way he played, the way he was playing at the end of before the lockdown, and all that was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the question for you that somebody answered. Who do we think, your guys' opinion, who's the most valuable player in the National Hockey League right now?
Well, I mean,
in the league,
there's two of them.
Yeah.
The one guy from Edmonton,
right,
and then the number 10 from the Rangers. Bring that team to where they were.
Right.
Where they should have been is nowhere near what they were this year, and they were getting better as the year went on.
Right.
I really think they would have, the last month there, they would have made the playoffs, and it would have been because of the bread man. Like my mother calls him, the little guy. The little guy is good.
I'm going to go in a different direction. The guy I like the most in the league is Patrice Bergeron up in Boston. I just think his all-around game is fantastic. And the reason I say that, and I'm with you and Zibanejad too, I think he's that same kind of player. I think people underestimate how good he is defensively. But he's as good defensively as he is offensively.
Well, listen, I certainly think Panarin, when you have your top guys, skill guys, enjoy the game and do the right thing. Now, it's funny because a lot of the things, we watch Panarin, but let me tell you something. He gets pissed. If it's not working right, it's not well. But when you get your top guys, for me, outside of the Rangers, the guy that, honest to God, I respect so much is Crosby.
Is who?
Sidney Crosby.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, that guy, he elevates everybody's game. He's been a 3-time winner. That team had all kinds of injuries through the season. He never got hurt. Again, I have no argument without Panarin. I think Mika probably across the board, like Bergeron, but boy, I have a lot of respect for Crosby, and I know that doesn't ring too well in Rangerland.
You just lost your job. You just lost your job.
You'd love to have him. I'm going to tell you right now, you'd love to have him.
Yeah, no question.
He does. He has a work ethic, I guess, that's second to none. But that's what you're talking about right now with some of these younger Rangers out there. That's a work ethic too.
Sure.
That transitions into the team being better, and all these guys doing it, and they grow like that better instead of being like everybody going their separate ways and going and play video games. And Crosby does that to that team. He's done it for 12 or 13 years, whatever he's there now. What's he been? He's been 4 Stanley Cups, 5 Stanley Cups. How many they won? 3?
I think he's won 3.
Yeah, and lost 1, right? Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question for you. The league's going to go back and play, and we're going to try to quarantine these guys. So 2-part question here. Do you think it would have been possible to quarantine us back in the day? And secondly, do you think these guys are going to stick strictly to the quarantine rules?
Only if we were staying in Sing Sing.
or
Alcatraz.
I was telling somebody the other day that part of what happens when you play is you become to think you're invincible, right? Because you made it to the top level, and that carries out throughout your life. So I could see myself back then. I can see some of the guys now thinking, I won't get the virus. I'm fine. I'll sneak out or whatever. I'm not giving that. It's not a criticism of the players. That's the young guy.
That's human nature, right? But I think human nature, are there going to be guys that think that way? But I think all of these guys realize there's an awful lot of money that can eventually be made. Again, it sounds like the collective bargaining agreement is coming closer to fruition. They're going to get something settled. And if they can get the hub cities announced and get the players back to their home markets and then get them to the hub cities, then they'll all be able to come up. There's no question, human nature, there are going to be guys that they believe they're bulletproof. But I think by and large, it's the same thing when I afforded the opportunity. I'm at most practices, travel with the team, and it's just such a different time. But when you look at it, you watch Panarin go up and down the ice. Well, that's $12 million a year. You watch a guy like Mark Stahl going up and down the ice. That's $5.5 million a year. Chris Kreider, $7.5 million a year. There's just a lot of money to be made if you're paying attention.
Yeah. You don't want to mess up for that.
Yeah, I think that's the override. And these guys they're a lot more aware now than we ever were. And I think we've touched on this before. I'm not sure they have as much fun as we had.
Yeah.
I don't know how much
I didn't have any fun, but if I did, I can't remember. But Dave, are you guys going to be? If they go back to do the games, are you doing the games on radio?
Yeah, we'll do it. So my understanding is, I know for sure from radio we'll go to the ESPN studios. Be Kenny Albert and I, or Don LaGreca and I. And my also understanding is and again, this certainly is second or third hand removed, but there'll be 2 feeds, right? Like Canadian Sportsnet and the American NBC, and each team will take whatever feed is coming from Edmonton, if it's Edmonton and Toronto, right? And then so Sam and Joe. I don't know if there'd be a role for John Giannone or not. They'll be in the MSG studios, calling it off the screen. So you'll get the feed, but you'll get the local flavor on a broadcast, is my understanding.
But for the TV, is MSG gonna do the playoffs, or they're not gonna do the playoffs?
No, it'll be the same as regular playoffs. My understanding is they're still working it out because the teams owe the local networks money for the season. Again, my limited understanding, there's money owed here for the games that never got broadcast in regular season.
Okay.
So, but beyond that point, my understanding is NBC, like they do in the first round, could take 2 Ranger games, right?
Okay.
The MSG. So from that standpoint, there are some details to work out as far as who has the games But that being said, I believe MSG has all the games in the first round. NBC will show it to non-MSG markets. But
Yeah. So after was that the first? Is that the best of
Yeah,
5 or the best of 7?
best of 5. The first
Best of
round,
5.
3 or 5. Yeah, and then it goes to the national carriers.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to like I'm tired of watching Law and Order over and over. I'm kind of looking forward to some hockey.
Yeah.
You don't know where Law and Order is. You don't know where Law. You've never watched Law and Order. What are you talking about?
Who?
You.
Always.
That's
I love that. I love that. Just in case something ever happens to me, I know what to do.
Watch Pops.
Yeah.
I actually, early in the pandemic, we got into Pinky Blinders and Ozark.
Yeah. Ozark's good.
Ozark, I saw both those shows. Especially Ozark, you're like, where in the world are they going now? And then
I know.
it was
The ending was good though, right?
yeah.
Oh my God.
So here's a question here from James Renfeld. Barry Beck as a teammate. What was Barry Beck like as a teammate?
Bubba?
Yeah.
But that's Barry Beck.
Well, I mean, what can you say about Bubba? I mean, there was like he was a great teammate. He was like when he was playing before he hurt his shoulder that year, people were scared of him.
Yeah.
You know, and it's nice to be on your side once instead of being the other way around, where every other team had those guys. But Bubba was I mean, don't forget he scored 20. I think Leachy broke his record for goals in a rookie season.
Yeah.
I think he had 22 and Leachy scored 23.
I had 25.
Well, you should have won rookie of the career.
It's 10 years. Yeah.
No, hey, listen, I think the thing is, when I'm asked about teammates, I'd be hard pressed to name a bad teammate. Now, there were guys that thought differently.
Right.
We're all trying to accomplish the same thing. And I think there are a couple of things with Barry that that we've talked about it. We'd gone to the finals, basically 4 players plus a 5th player, and so he comes in as a physical guy that could fight, but you don't want him fighting, right?
Yeah.
And then so from a perception, I believe the fans, I just don't know that he ever got to the right where he could have been. Just leave him alone, let him go out and play, let him be who he is, and he'd be tremendous. He's a little bit, just one of those guys that maybe, he comes with that big, just leave him alone, let him go play. Don't expect anything other than what he's going to do.
I mean, I've known Bubba since he's 15 years old. Probably when he played for the Langley, whatever their Chiefs or whatever they were called back in. I used to go watch their games between the Kamloops farm team and out in British Columbia and the newest Mr. Broom's farm team. So it was Harold Philippoff and Bubba Beck every game, maybe a couple 2-3 times a game fighting. And it was amazing. Then the next year they were teammates, and I think Bubba really pushed himself to be that leader to win the Stanley Cup, and that's what he was brought here for. And I think that was some of his disappointment that didn't happen. But Bubba was a lot of fun. He was a great guy.
Yeah, he was a funny guy. When he got in the right mood, he was a funny man too in the locker room.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
He sat to my couch for a couple of weeks when he first moved to New York, or the pull-out couch, whatever they call that. That was pretty scary, having him in the same apartment with me.
Here's one, guys. We were touching on coming back to play. They had the draft lottery, what last week it was, and it ends up now. So one of the 8 teams that gets beat out of the playoffs is going to ended up getting the number 1 pick in the draft. Right. So you kind of wonder, and I don't think any players or coaches are going to want to tank, but it's obviously some team thinks, like, you think if you're an owner or whatever, and thinks, okay, we're not going to go any farther than this first round and into the playoffs. So why are we trying to win this? Why not? We want to lose and get a shot.
That's the best of 5, right? They ones that lose there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. 12 teams. No, hey, listen, I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that people are the level that we get to.
Yeah.
Even management tank, really? Really?
Well, I think there's different kinds of
I've been
tanking.
on the management side, but
Listen, I play cards with my kids. I don't tank against them. I'm not tanking against any other team either.
Yeah, I mean, there's different kinds of tanking. Like nowadays, if a team thinks that they're not going to go anywhere, they'll trade off their best players to get draft picks, and people view that as tanking, right? So now you get a higher draft pick. You're preparing for the future. The Rangers didn't tank when they retooled their team. They just traded off their picks. But some people view that as tanking. The players and coaches aren't going to tank. Yeah.
Well, I think tanking is only when you're gonna if you're the worst team to get the first pick and you don't play with a goalie for the last 40 games. That's tanking. But I don't think I like now the lottery draft is so much different. It doesn't matter.
I have a hard time thinking that how this played out was fair to the 7 teams that aren't going to participate, and not one of them is going to get this Lafreniere. Yeah, somehow that doesn't seem fair.
I know.
But I guess those are the rules, right? Yeah. And so I think it's at the end of the day, I always think, okay, what are the rules? We play by the rules. We move on.
Yeah. My prediction is that if the Rangers lose the first round, they get the first pick.
That's your prediction? Okay.
That'll be the rest of the world thinking, well, the league wanted the Rangers to have the first pick. It's the New York market. And
well, they had one in 1965, for God's sakes.
Well, I'll tell you, the number 2 pick.
First overall, I'm talking about, not first round.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know, somehow, but those, until somebody asks yours truly what your thoughts are. It's a little bit like, when the suspension comes down, right? Well, was it the right amount of games?
Yeah, never.
Well, for me personally, it doesn't matter. That's what they ruled, and move on.
Yeah.
And with the draft too, you never know what these players. I mean, Jerome McGinley just got put into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think he's the 12th overall pick in the draft. The year he was drafted, and if you look back at his career, he probably should have been the first pick in the draft. But that's just the nature of the draft, right? You're drafting these kids at 18 years old. You don't know. I mean, other than those franchise players, those generational players, the rest of the guys you really don't know. So
it's tough. Any draft, the first round, you pick somebody you don't know.
Well, how about Gresh? How about Greg Jolly in '74, the first draft in Washington?
Yeah, I played against him in junior for 3 years. I know.
Overall, I don't know that
he played with Gillies, Wanchuk, Sobchuk, all these guys.
Right.
They won the Memorial Cup. He had 90 points. I had 103, and he got drafted first overall. He couldn't even play on my team.
There's been, that's the thing. It's not an exact science, and I guess nothing's an exact science, even the way they go about picking. So, you know what? But this day and age now, right? Because you get sports talk, and you get us 3 guys here talking about things, and it makes for conversation. But at the end of the day, sometimes you're going, okay, why are we talking about this?
Yeah. That was better than listening to Greg's stories. That's why.
Well, I think guys that are drafted first overall, and if you're not a Lemieux or Crosby or Ovechkin or one of those guys, and you're like, there's a couple guys behind you that are just as good, there's less pressure on those guys once that guy's picked first and that guy's picked 8th or whatever. Not that it's not on everybody, but when you're drafted first overall and you get there, it's like, here's what they expect and nothing less than that. But it should be here to build up to that. It could be. It's just it's a tough thing. Can
you explain that? Can you explain that again, Gresh?
Well, I can't explain it again, Tom, because I can't remember what I said. But anyway,
the thing is,
it's not easy being a first rounder. It's not easy being a first rounder.
That's right. Well, here's the thing too, is those guys like Crosby, Ovechkin, or Gretzky, Lemieux are the real superstars, right? I think Artemi Panarin, when I watched him this season, he might be the first guy that I've seen on a day-to-day basis that you go, that guy is different than everybody else I've seen.
Yeah.
And he deserves every kind of acknowledgement that he's different. If everybody was going to be the next great ones, then there'd be no next great ones, right? There are legitimate next great ones. just because you're first round, that's the thing now. The way they hype the youth now, right? Every draft, there's the next Crosby or there's whatever. Well, you know what? Those guys don't come along every year.
There's with Panarin, like watching him this year, making those plays that he does.
Ugh.
I haven't seen anybody like that since Gretzky
Right.
that can do that. Like,
Well, that kid out in Vancouver, that Peterson's, you watch him play. He's in that same. I'm not saying he's Gretzky, but he's that same kind of player, right? The pretty magical and everything. So
guys that I couldn't look forward and give a good pass. Looking the other way and passing it. You know?
Well, that's why there's a certain level of player, and then there's the rest of us.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up here. I want to know that were there any swear words at all?
Damn, I don't think so.
Well, we got about another 10 shows to have with no swear words to make up, like to even it out how Phil had like a.
Only 10 shows?
Oh, no.
Yeah, the F-bomb was pretty pertinent in the last.
Like we would play a drinking game, like it would take a shot every time Phil throws the F-bomb. We'll be hammered.
We'll put $1 in the cup next time when Phil gets on, and we'll buy a new car after.
Well, that's what we said. He's a character, and you know what? He was, he's a character. He's still a character. So,
well, did I tell you that before we went on the show, he asked me if he could swear, and I said, "Well, Phil, give me a little bit."
Well, you know what? If that's a little bit,
then it's all your fault, Tommy.
Yeah,
Just for that, let's make you get another haircut.
there you go. All right, guys, great job. We'll see everybody next Thursday.
Hey, happy 4th of July. I know it was Canada Day yesterday.
Yeah.
We're all of Canadian root. We love this country, America, and happy 4th to everyone out there.
Yeah, everybody be safe out there.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. See you guys.
Bye.
Later.
Bye, guys.